And good afternoon. This is Sam Vaughn for Sam Sports Report. The Orioles actually won a baseball game yesterday. They've been very few and far between this season. Let's start out talking about the Orioles and what they should do for the future and is currently right now. I'm going to name all the players in the lineups. We're going to start with the regular catching positions and the regular positions right now. At catcher, Salvador Perez, it has changed back from him and Freddie Freeman. Freeman was starting while Perez was dealing with a minor injury. He was playing the DH position at that time. He just came back yesterday at the catcher position. First baseman, Vinny Pasquantino or Nick Pratto. Second baseman, Michael Massey. Shortstop, Bobby Witt Jr. Third baseman, Miguel Garcia or Nate Eaton. Left fielder, Edward Olivares. Center fielder, Michael Bradley Jr. Right fielder, MJ Melendez. My lineup would be catcher, Salvador Perez, unless Freddie Freeman could shore up his defense. But right now, he looks like one of the worst catchers in baseball, and he cannot control the running game and does not have the arm to play catcher at this moment. You can continue to run him out there, MJ Melendez, and at a catcher spot, yeah, you can have somebody batting 200. But ideally, you'd like nobody to bat 200 in your lineup. And now we move on to the first baseman. So I would have Salvador Perez at my catching position. And my first baseman would be Nick Pratto or Salvador Perez, depending on what decision you make with. But as of right now, my first baseman would be Nick Pratto, as I would have Salvi catching position. Second baseman, Matt Duffy. He is hitting the best. You can't have 194 player batting like Michael Massey. Shortstop, Bobby Witt Jr. Third baseman, Miguel Garcia. With the great speed and the great batting average, you can't play anybody else at third base. And the Royals continue to play him at third and look like maybe they have a future third baseman. Shortstop, Bobby Witt Jr. I know he's not playing that significant on defense, some people like to say, but he's pretty good for me. I know he has some errors, but he's got time to develop. And who do we have to play? If not him, then who? Left fielder, Edward Olivares. Olivares, as playing center, is not great at the position, so we'd have to look for somebody else. At center fielder, I'd have to pick somebody up or pick up somebody in the minors. Right fielder, Vinny Pasquantino would be in my right field. And DH, Freddie Freeman, the catcher. Here's the situation in center field. The Royals either need to send up Darian Blanco and add him to the 40-man roster. He is hitting 286, which is a lot better than 0.34, or Michael Bradley Jr. is hitting 164. Also, I would designate for assignment, which seems like it's coming soon, Hunter Dozier. The Royals are struggling in right field as well. You could put Vinny Pasquantino at DH, but then it kind of takes out the situation. The Royals DH are hitting .4, 164. That can't be an average for your right fielder. Players at DH, and who could play right field, Vinny Pasquantino, Nick Pratto. Also, your DH could be Freddie Freeman. I would have him start at DH, Freddie Freeman, Nick Pratto, Vinny Pasquantino at right, and Nick Pratto at first. Reasons for that being is I want to see Nick Pratto, how well he can play at first, since Vinny Pasquantino has a hard time there, or I can keep Vinny Pasquantino there and play Nick Pratto in left, as he is the better defender. I would try to see how Vinny Pasquantino can play left or DH, but I think DH would be Freddie Freeman for right now and see how he develops. So here's some of the reasons I may go with MJ Melendez. See what I could get for him as a trade market, or play Freddie Freeman at the catcher position, but he has to improve. The first stage situation of why I stated above is that Perez is a better player, and you can't have a catcher that is hitting 200 if you want to start Melendez again, although you could if you're a manager and you got to trade out of that. The second situation for catcher is up for Freddie Freeman, better defender. As we said, he cannot throw to second. He has a terrible arm and is literally one of the worst catchers I've ever seen. So that's a hard decision for me to make. The second baseman is Matt Duffy, stated why above. Shortstop, I know some people don't think maybe he's a shortstop. For me, he's good enough. He runs hard, and he can also run out those fly balls and left. He's a pretty good shortstop. I've seen him made some bad plays, but all in all, he's a pretty good shortstop. Here's a couple of trade ideas. Trading almost everybody except Bobby Witt Jr. At this point, the record is what it is, and I'm not really seeing the Royals get better this season unless they need to go towards the stadium voting, but I don't really see why it'd be any different if you're second worst or third worst, or I guess they're going to be what they're going to be. So I would deal people and see where the Royals are at the end of the season with the stadium deal. My guess it'll pass anyways, but that's just a guess. Or, as I've said many times, back up the stadium voting. The contract doesn't want up till 2031. Does it take 7 years to really build a stadium? If it does, in Missouri, you can tell by the streets. The best option would be to tank, but they do have a new stadium on the vote ballot. As I said, I would push it back. Before we move on to other teams, I want to see Ryan Yarnberg hit by a pitch. Luckily, he was okay. He's got a nice shiner right now. Looks how I got punched in the face when I was in high school. I blacked out, though, so my situation may be a little worse.
Oh, right no. Back to Yarborough. Oh, no. Great to see him up.
But it's 2-2. Game time is at 6:40. The Cardinals and Cubs, unlike a lot of seasons, the Cubs have a better record than the Cardinals. They're just at 500, the Cubs are, but the Cardinals are 11-24. Miles Velasquez will go for the Cardinals, and as a struggle this season, Marcus Stroman will go for the Cubs. He's a great season so far with a 2.18 ERA. Game time is at 6:40. That's it for baseball. Now on to the NBA. The Suns played the Nuggets last night, evening the series at 2. Nikola Djokovic had an amazing game with 53 points. But Jamal Murray had 28, but there was no defense in the game. That's why they scored over 120 points. Kevin Durant finishes with 35. Next game is Tuesday at 9 from Denver. Final score was 129-124. As I said, both teams put over 120, and the defenses were bad for the game. And in the final game yesterday at the night, Celtics beat the Sixers in a classic. Or the Celtics and Sixers tie up the series in a classic as they score 116-115 in a game that went to overtime. James Harden did a 3 to give the Sixers a lead. The Nuggets came down, and if you weren't looking at the light, you would have thought the Celtics had won with 3 made by Marcus Smart. But the red light came up, and it was the right call. The Celtics took too long to shoot that ball. The ball on that offensive possession. Series is tied at 2, going back to Boston. New York Knicks, Miami Heat tonight at 6:30. Heat lead the series 2-1. After number 1 seeded Heat, the Heat are playing their best basketball of the season and it came at the right time in the playoffs. Game time is at 6:30. Miami favored by 4.5. The Heat have a chance to take a 3-1 lead. Players to watch out for: Julius Randle for the Knicks, averaging about 25 in the playoffs, and Jimmy Butler, who is averaging 22.9 points a game. Game time is at 6:30. Miami favored by 4.5. This game tips off at 9. The Lakers and the Warriors, players to watch out for: Klay Thomas and Stephon Curry, and of course for the Lakers, LeBron James and Anthony Davis. 2-1 Lakers. Game time is at 9. This is Sam Vaughn for Sam Sports.